There's a lot of ultralight gear out there that people just swear by, and some of it is absolutely awesome. But if I'm being honest, some of it kind of makes me go, wait, why are we doing this? Quick disclaimer, this is just my opinion. If you love this gear, that's awesome. Me, I'm personally trying to balance comfort and weight, not just chase the lowest number possible. And if you saw my most recent video, you'll know all about that because I go over my gear philosophy and why I bring the gear that I do. Hike your own hike, as some may say. If you're new to the channel, hi everyone, I'm Justin and welcome to the channel. Let's hit the trail. Here we talk about all things hiking and backpacking, especially backpacking. So if that's your kind of thing, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And today we're going to talk about some ultralight gear that I just don't understand. I will say, all of this gear, it really is good gear and it's popular for a reason. If you want to check any of the gear out for yourself, I'll leave links down in the description along with some of my personal favorite alternatives. There are 7 pieces of gear that I want to talk about. Some of them are very specific down to the branded model, some a little more generic, but we are going to start with a big one and one of the most popular pieces of ultralight gear out there, and that is the Thermarest NeoAir XLite. On paper, this thing is incredible. It's super lightweight, it packs down really small, and it's got a fantastic warmth to weight ratio. But in real life, it just doesn't work for me. And one of the main reasons is comfort. Compared to something like a Nemo or a Big Agnes, I just think it's less comfortable and it feels less stable, especially if you're a side sleeper. And if you get the 20-inch version, God, you just feel like you're gonna roll off of that thing all night long. Me anyway, because I tend to toss and turn as I sleep. Even at home, it's not just on the trail. I just tend to move around a lot. Second is the noise. It's notorious for sounding like a bag of potato chips. I know the new ones are a little bit quieter, but still not quiet enough. And then there's something that I don't hear talked about very often, and that's how these pads tend to fail. When something goes wrong with an XLite, it tends to not just be a hole on the outside that you can just patch and be on your way with. They tend to blow baffles. And when a baffle blows, you end up with this giant lump in the pad that basically makes it unusable. I have put a couple holes in some Nemo and Big Agnes pads over the years, but I've always been able to patch them at least enough to get back into town or somewhere where I can replace them, or just completely extend the life of it. But when I was hiking the PCT, I remember running into several people that had baffles blow inside of their XLites. And at that point, the only real option is you have to get a new pad. And if you're days away from the nearest trailhead, well, that's gonna suck. So like all the gear on the list today, I understand why it's popular. It's super lightweight, it's really warm, but for me, between the comfort, the noise, and how it fails, it's just not worth the weight savings for me. And one more quick tangent on this before we move on to the next piece of gear. It's just 20-inch pads in general. I don't know how you guys get away with using 20-inch pads. I just can't stand it. Get yourself a 25-inch pad. All right, next up on the list, we're gonna continue with sleeping pads, but we're gonna talk about foam pads. And I did talk about this a little bit in the last video, but something like this Thermarest XLite or any other version of these kind of pads. I understand why people like these pads. They're cheap, indestructible, and you don't have to worry about punctures. But for me, I just don't understand using one of these as your primary sleeping pad, especially for longer trips. Because after a long day of hiking, when you lay down on one of these, you feel everything, like every rock, every root, all the lumps in the ground. And yeah, you might get used to it, but I don't want to have to get used to it. I just want a comfortable sleeping pad. I'd rather carry some extra weight and get good sleep. When Anna and I were hiking the PCT, we actually carried half of a XLite. Actually, you see that right here. And we use these as sit pads and we put them under our primary inflatable sleeping pad at night for a little extra protection. And to me, that's exactly what these are, is they are supplemental pads, not a primary pad, but that's just my opinion. All right, next up, we're gonna get very specific again with an ultra popular, ultralight piece of gear, and that is the BRS 3000T. I get it, but I don't get it. It's super lightweight, it's super small, but I just don't think it's a good stove. First, let's talk about the wind. Even in a 4-mile-an-hour gentle breeze, these basically become useless. And yeah, in a nice, calm environment, this thing can perform great. But when you're actually out in nature and you're out backpacking in the mountains, you're probably gonna have a little bit of wind, sometimes a lot. And with any little bit of breeze, this just becomes completely inefficient or just doesn't work at all. And yes, you can add a windscreen to this. I actually just watched a Gear Skeptic video where he demonstrated if you add a windscreen, it actually becomes very efficient. But if you add a windscreen to something like a Pocket Rocket Deluxe or Windmaster, they become incredibly efficient. But I just want to keep it simple. A pot, a stove, that's it. And when you're comparing apples to apples without windscreens or anything, comparing a pressure regulating stove like the Pocket Rocket Deluxe, which is what I use most often, this is going to outperform the BRS every time. It does a lot better in the wind, it's much more stable, it has much better simmer control, it's pressure regulating, so it's going to work better in higher altitudes, colder environments, and of course when the fuel in the can is getting low. So just apples to apples, outside of weight, this is the clear winner. So for me, I'd rather carry a couple extra ounces and have a much better stove. Not to mention, this thing sounds like a jet engine when you use it. Maybe some people like that, but I prefer the nice, calm burn of this. All right, moving on. This one isn't as popular as the other pieces of gear that we've already talked about, but this one I really don't get at all, and this is Bivy sacks. I get the fact that they're light, they're easy to set up, but I just look at a Bivy sack and just think, man, that thing is a coffin. You're zipped into this tiny space that you had to crawl into, you can't sit up, and I'm just trying to imagine being stuck in a storm in one of those for hours. That's just gonna be miserable. They are light. I know one of the most popular ones is the Outdoor Research Helium. I think that's just over a pound. But I mean, nowadays you can get some ultralight tents that are under a pound. I just saw that Hyperlight Mountain Gear has a bug net bivy or bug mesh bivy, and that's like 5 or 6 ounces. But if it rains, that means you have to bring a tarp anyway, and at that point you might as well just bring a tent. So yeah, bivvies can be light, they're less expensive, but I think a little extra money for a nice ultralight tent is the much better and much more comfortable option. For me, bivvies just sacrifice too much and you basically get no gain out of it. All right, next up, this one might ruffle some more feathers. This isn't about a specific brand, but we're gonna talk about carbon fiber trekking poles. And again, I get the appeal. They're super lightweight, sometimes even half the weight of their aluminum counterparts. First and most obvious for me is durability. Aluminum poles, they'll bend. Carbon fiber poles, they snap. Aluminum poles are still usable if they get bent, and you might even be able to bend them back into proper form. Carbon fiber poles are just useless at that point. And that's especially important if you use a trekking pole tent like I do, that uses 2 trekking poles. So now if your trekking pole breaks, your shelter is compromised and isn't gonna set up properly. That's a big deal, especially if you're somewhere that doesn't have nice convenient sticks lying around. Second, they're more expensive, usually upwards of $200 for a pair of poles. I'd rather pay a little bit less for something that's gonna last much longer. And honestly, after hiking thousands of miles, including the PCT, I've never once gotten to camp and thought, man, my arms are tired. This just doesn't happen. The biggest thing for me though is the durability. I used a pair of Black Diamond, I think Trail Ergo Cork was the model. I used those for over 6 years. And the only reason I just got rid of them was because the handle was chewed through by some critter overnight. So I actually just picked up these Lecky Makalu, I think I'm gonna go with that. These are actually the highest rated trekking pole on the PCT according to the most recent Halfway Anywhere survey. The highest rated was not carbon fiber, it was aluminum. So for me, trekking poles aren't somewhere that I feel I need to spend extra money and save weight. These poles are great. The next thing that I want to talk about is a little more general again, and this is going to be frameless packs, especially without a hip belt. Now, to be fair, these do work. if you have a very low base weight. You have to be a lot more particular about how you pack them. They're not going to carry well if you have a lot of weight from a lot of water or a big food carry. But what surprises me is how many people use them that really shouldn't be. I remember on the PCT, as we were heading into Sierra, running into somebody that had a frameless pack, and on top of it, he had his Bivy 500 full of 6 days of food, and he was in agony. His shoulders were hurting and his pack was actually tearing at the shoulders under the weight. And I'm just thinking, what are you doing? Just use a real framed backpack. Even an ultralight backpack with some minimalist stays is gonna work much better in that kind of situation. That's just not what those types of packs are designed for. So I get the appeal, and there are definitely circumstances where you can get away with using a frameless pack, but I think for most people, they're just not worth the weight savings. Especially now, there are so many great ultralight framed packs out there. You can keep your weight down without destroying your shoulders. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that I think every backpacker probably did at some point, especially when they're starting out, but some ultralighters keep doing this because it basically weighs nothing. And that is using a stuff sack as a pillow. I've done this. You take your extra clothes, shove it in the stuff sack, boom, you got a pillow. In theory, but in reality, it just kind of collapses under the weight of your head. No cushion, no support, and not comfortable. And on a really cold night, you're probably gonna have all of your layers on. So now you have nothing to put in your stuff sack, and then now you have no pillow. So for me, a stuff sack pillow is out. And honestly, for me, a pillow in general, and I know I've talked about this in several other videos, a pillow is not a luxury item. A pillow is an essential piece of your sleep system. At the end of the day, ultralight gear is awesome. I use quite a bit of ultralight gear, but some of it, as you now know, I just don't understand. Ultimately, for me, it's about finding that balance of comfort and weight, not just weight. So I'm curious, what's one piece of ultralight gear that you just don't understand? Drop it down in the comments. I read every one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. But that is going to do it for now. And until next time, I'll see you out on the trail. Cheers.